still traffic, so I figured I would just hop on here real quick, talk about the topic of the day while I'm on my way to cover the Wings again. But yeah, so Micah Parsons has apparently requested a trade. This is something that I saw online. I just gotten off the phone with another content creator, and it's the first thing I saw. And here's my thing about it. First of all, the timing is ridiculous. One thing we've always talked about with the Joneses is the timing and how they'll put things out at a certain time to make sure that it gets talked about all weekend. Evening shows talked about all weekend and then covered on the A block on Monday morning. Like, it's very strategic. And I don't know if Micah Parsons did that on purpose, but I do know that Jerry Jones said that Micah is one of the smartest players he's ever dealt with when it comes to how he does business. So, I mean, hey, it's very possible that this was strategic by him. Plus, Micah's agent is very smart, very smart. So when I saw the timing of this, and I realized, like, okay, a lot of the media that might be coming out of Oxnard today has already been planned or already been done. And it was with just enough time for them to switch around what they were going to do on NFL Live today on ESPN. I was kind of like, oh yeah, there's no way that was an accident, right? And I don't know if anything new has come out about it since I like got in the car and shit. So if anything happened, feel free to leave it in the comments. But from reading Micah's statement, I feel like he's putting a lot of the pieces together that people were trying to figure out from some of the things the Joneses have said and some of the weird ways that they've been talking and moving, especially Stephen Jones. Because if y'all think back to training camp, one of the things I pointed out, I was like, Stephen Jones got kind of an attitude, right? And he's never a pleasant and bubbly person anyway, but it was just something different about his attitude in this situation, because he seemed especially annoyed by reporters asking about contract negotiations and who was talking to who, especially when reporters were getting it wrong. Like, Stephen Jones got especially annoyed when reporters were saying things about Jerry talking to agents, and Jerry, why haven't you talked to so-and-so, and Jerry, why haven't you talked to so-and-so? That's when he jumped in with the Jerry doesn't talk to the agents, I do. Do y'all remember that? Because that was something that Jerry was answering a question, and Stephen Jones hopped in unprompted, which is not something that he usually does. It's not something that he usually does. Like, Stephen usually acts like he doesn't even like to be answering questions. Like, it's an obligation, right? So when he jumped in with that, I was just like, what is this man's problem? But this kind of explains it, because he did that. He also commented a couple of other times during that press conference about who talks to who. That's when he brought up Adam's name, about who Adam talks to, and he's like, Jerry talks to the principals, we talk to the agents and attorneys, right? And then there was the 105.3 The Fan interview where he was like, 90% of what y'all reporting, y'all got wrong. And he's just been very adamant this preseason about, like, y'all are getting it wrong. Y'all are reporting the wrong things. And I've even talked about it. I even said, hey, I don't think the Joneses are doing everything right, but I think there's more to this that we don't know. I think there's some things happening that we don't know, that we're not privy to. And so the things that we are trying to do, we're coming to the wrong conclusion because we don't have all the information, you know? And so I think now we're in a situation where, okay, Mike is kind of peeling the curtain back and being like, okay, here's what happened. Which, if y'all remember a few months ago, Micah, there were headlines out that they were close to a deal, right? And then all of a sudden, it just all went away. And so what Micah said about how he doesn't want to be beholden to a conversation that he had when his agent wasn't involved, that kind of explains that, because there were people very close to that situation who were also of the mindset that a deal was on the way. People seemed so sure, then all of a sudden it just kind of all dissipated. It all went away. And so I really think that what he's saying is exactly what happened. It sounds like he talked to Jerry, as Steven said, Jerry talks to the principals. Sounds like he talked to Jerry, but then by the time his agent got around to getting in touch with who he needed to get in touch with, all of a sudden they weren't on the same page, that some negotiations still needed to happen, which suggests that there's some communication issues among the Joneses. I think people are looking at this as like the Joneses versus the players, but it really is pointing to the possibility that there are communications issues happening amongst the Joneses themselves, that they're not on the same page. And I don't mean like by accident. I don't mean like this is some innocent, oh, we made a mistake, I thought he said this. No, I think that they want different things. I think they literally value different things. I believe that Jerry is all on board of making Micah Parsons the highest paid whatever, which would be why his conversation with Micah would have gone well. But then by the time Stephen Jones gets involved, it turns into a situation where like, no, I don't want this. I don't care who he is. Like, when it comes to this idea that some people have, let's put it this way, this idea that some people have that the Joneses want to put players in their place, that they don't want to pay players, that they're trying to manipulate them, yada, yada, yada. I don't think that's the Joneses coming together for that. I think that is a Stephen Jones thing, and that it runs contrary to how Jerry Jones is trying to run things. Because just the way the dots are connecting, it's like Micah talks directly to Jerry, but for some reason his agent ends up talking to Adam. You know, Jerry is in the press conference talking about what he wants to do in terms of signing. Like, Stephen Jones hops on the mic, well, he doesn't talk to the agents, I do. Like, it feels like there's a rift there. It feels like there's a lack of alignment, and it feels like that lack of alignment is like causing tension in the relationship between the Cowboys and one of their actual best players. And they need to iron that shit out, because I wouldn't be surprised if that is something that's happened that's caused this to happen with every other player who's had issues, whether it's Dak or CD or whoever. I wouldn't be surprised if it's the same pattern over and over again. Jerry's excited about keeping these players. He's excited about paying them, and he talks to them. They have a conversation, but then for some reason, by the time the attorneys and lawyers get involved, the story is different. All of a sudden, there's other things that need to be worked out. All of a sudden, some of the things they talked about can't happen. Because if it was Jerry talking to everybody, it would be a little bit more confusing. But if it's that Jerry is having one conversation, but then Steven tries to take that conversation in a different way, oh, that would explain all that shit. That would explain all that shit. And as much power as Jerry has, he can't make all the decisions by himself. Not unless he's going to actually, like, fire his own son or some shit, which would be wild. Like, talk about headlines. But I don't think it bothers them enough to do that. And that's one thing that I will still put on Jerry's plate, is that, like, look, if this really were a problem, you could do something about it. So I don't think it bothers them enough to do that. As a matter of fact, shit like this actually kind of helps him in a way. If you think about, like, the documentary that's coming out and what Jerry said about, oh yeah, you know, I was watching the episode where we talk about the negotiations with Emmitt Smith and yada yada yada. Like, he's practically using this whole situation as advertising for the documentary that's coming out. So even if he doesn't necessarily like it, he's gonna learn how to use it. But just going back to what he said about Micah being one of the smartest players he's ever interacted with when it comes to how he handles business, you have to look at it through the lens of that. Not saying that Micah isn't serious. I'm not saying that. I do think that I think that Micah does want to be a Cowboy in his heart of hearts, because he said it too much. I don't think he's completely gone away from that. But I do think that he feels badly enough about how these negotiations have gone to at least put it out there that he's open to not being one. But it's like, when you put out a statement like that, you can't be like, well, I've toyed with the idea of not being a Cowboy. Like, no, you got to say with your whole chest, which he did. And that's essentially what's happening. But I feel like if we were to get down to the details, because, like, Micah pulled the curtain back, right? So we've learned a few things. But I feel like if we were to ask people about the details, we would learn who's had what conversations with who. And I really do believe that we would learn that some of the conversations that Stephen Jones is having, he's one that's causing some of these negotiations to be held up, because he's the one who can't get on the same page with everybody else about what should happen and when it should happen. I'm gonna just take a quick look at this. Thank you, the lunatic. I appreciate it. But yeah, I'm not going to stay on here much longer because traffic is starting to lighten up. So if y'all don't have any questions, I'm going to hop off. I just wanted to hop on it and speak my 2 cents on it. I'll probably talk more about this, of course, next time I go live, whether it's Tuesday or I find time this weekend or whatever. It is my birthday this weekend, so if you see this and want to leave a gift, or if you're watching right now and want to drop a super chat, I will appreciate it. If you follow me on social media, I'm going to drop other ways that you can kind of support me, whether it's for my birthday or the content. But yeah, if you're watching this after the fact, let me know what you think, because I feel like that's one part of this that needs to be discussed more. Not just what Micah is saying or doing against the Joneses, but more so what is happening between the Joneses themselves. Do y'all feel like there's a lack of alignment there? Do y'all feel like the communication is off? Do y'all feel like that's really what's holding up these negotiations, as opposed to just a disagreement with the player as it's been presented? Y'all let me know what y'all think. I always forget how to turn this off.